I don't know why it keeps doing that. I really don't. I don't know.
I think it's a setup.
I'm about to just. I'm gonna just put a mallet right here so that I could just hit it with a mallet because obviously my finger's not working.
Well, it's okay. We made it. Happy
Yes.
Friday.
Happy Friday.
Tonight we are drinking a brand we have drank before, but just not this blend. So this is a Pinot Noir. I think the last time we had a Cabernet, and it is Prophecy. And let's cheers because we've had a hell of a day.
Cheers.
Cheers. I haven't had a Pinot Noir in a while.
It's been a minute.
Yeah, because that's
That's
strong.
good. I like it.
There's like
It's got a flavorful finish to it.
I'm trying to figure out
And
what
it's
it
not,
is.
and I wouldn't call it a dry finish. I mean, it does have like a hint of a dry finish, but I feel like there's more of like a flavor there.
I wish I knew. I wish I could really taste the notes in wine because there's definitely something very prominent in this wine. I know what it is. I've tasted it before, but it's not coming to me.
I mean, for lack of a better explanation, I want to say that it has like a fruity finish to it. And that's not even doing it any justice.
I don't think it's fruity.
There's something sweet to it to me.
Yeah, but I don't think it's fruit. I think it's like chocolate.
Something sweet.
Yeah, you said fruity, so that's what, but like I don't taste fruit. I taste like something sweet, but I don't know if it's fruit. I don't know. We'll have to look it up. I'm interested now.
Yeah, definitely gonna have to look that up.
And also, Melissa, welcome to the stream. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
What's up, Melissa? Welcome.
So tonight we're gonna start off the top of the hour talking about culture vultures, or just culture vulturing, not necessarily like a particular person.
Right.
That is a vulture, just the overall umbrella of culture.
I think we are going to get into some specifics of people actually culture vulturing.
I think those people are I'm not sure. We're going to bring them up, but I'm not sure. And good evening, Muncie. Thank you so much for joining us. Long time no see.
Good evening.
So let's get into culture vulture. Before we get into it, I want to make sure that I give the definition of what this is, because I felt like I knew what it was, but but I felt like I needed to understand it like on its truest like Webster dictionary level, because I feel like for me there was aspects of it that I was missing, right? So I'm going to read for you the exact definition. Hold on, let me see if I could just bring it right here in front of me. Or not. Okay. So, culture vulture, one who appropriates the art, creativity, and style of others, most often for their own benefit, and at worst, in a way that serves no value to the originators or whatever culture, product, tradition, or practice it was lifted from.
And after I read this...
Oh, you read the same definition?
Yeah, I read the same definition. I feel now that the artist that I said...
Yes, that you were like, this conversation.
You were like, I don't know. And I was like, but yeah, I think so.
Do you believe now more so?
Now, based on that definition, yeah, I don't feel like there's been any homage or respect paid towards the culture.
So, what sparked this conversation between Evo and I was I actually went to the nail salon the other day, and it was predominantly Asian. There also was Hispanic women that were working in there, so there was a mix of Asian and Hispanic. But one of the things I noticed was that there was Spanish music playing, and a particular song came on, and it seemed like maybe the owner or the person who was running the place, who was Asian, I'm not sure what background, a song came on and he walked over and turned up the volume on the song. And I was like, that's interesting. But that is not the first time that I have seen a merging of Asian and Hispanic culture. So it sparked a memory in me. So when I came home that day, I went on YouTube to find this band that I had seen in the mid-90s, that they were Japanese and they sang salsa music. And I'm just going to look them up again really quick, because the name the name, I had it at the tip of my tongue.
You know what? And I have to add, when you showed this to me, I was actually impressed by their ability to nail the accent, the salsa accent, and the notes that they carried, the way that they sung the music. How, like, if I wasn't visually seeing Asians performing this music and I was just listening to it,
you may not have known.
I probably would have passed off as Latin singers singing that music.
Okay, so I want you to pronounce this for me.
Orquesta de la Luz.
Yeah. So Orchestra of the Lights?
Yes.
Okay. But Luz is spelled...
Or Light of the Orchestra.
Light of the Orchestra. So we can be a little bit more definitive. It was an entire Japanese band. They were all Japanese, from the lead singer down to the people that played the instruments. And I remember seeing this band on a performance that they had did that... I forget what obscure TV like music station I watched it on. And I just remember it being burned in my brain because I have a love for all facets of Asian culture, whether it be Chinese, Japanese, Vietnamese. There's little pockets of each of those cultures that like I adore. So when I saw this hybrid of my culture and Asian culture, I was like kind of stunned, right? I'm just like, but at the same time, it wasn't unknown to me because I grew up in a neighborhood where the Chinese restaurants served plátanos.
Yeah.
You know, they made totones.
You can get totones at the Chinese
restaurant.
Yeah,
you can get totones. And let's be real, the totones were banging.
And then they would be like in their language, you know, I'm not going to try to say it because I'm going to chop it up. But, you know, whatever, you couldn't understand what they were saying. And then you heard totones, you know. You know what I'm saying? So like I'm sorry.
Stop laughing. Okay, that burned a little bit. Okay, so it wasn't like completely unknown to me. I had seen this hybrid before.
Yeah. But
so when I walked into the nail salon the other day and I saw and I heard and like I saw this like again integration of Asian and Hispanic culture, I was just like, I kind of love this. So I came home, I showed you the band, and what was your immediate response? And I'll be honest, I was kind of taken back.
So, thinking back to when you showed me the video, at first, you know, you hear the music playing. I'm gonna set the scene for you a little bit here. So, you know, the video starts off, and you see like these Asian people dressed in Latin band clothes.
Yeah.
You know, like so Latin bands, they all pretty much dress the same. They have their outfits like coordinated, you know, and so the vibe was there, and I'm hearing the music playing, and I was like, you know, like a salsa song was like,
I know,
you know, and like I'm hear the trumpets playing, and then everything's going, and I'm like, what's going on here? Like something's not right. And then they start singing, and I mean, literally, if I just close my eyes, you couldn't tell me that there was Asian people singing that or playing the music at that. Like it was a full band and a singer, all Asian, singing salsa music.
Japanese. You could just say Japanese because they were all Japanese.
Okay, fine. Japanese. But even though like they had, it sounded authentic, it just didn't hit.
The lead singer, she literally came out. She was like, "Mira mi gente!"
Yes.
Like, she came out with the fuego.
I'll give her that. I mean, like, she definitely had the accent down, and I'll be honest with you, it kind of sounded like she may have been raised in that environment by the way that I heard the accent. I could be wrong. She just could be.
To clarify, she was not. She just had a love for that style of music.
Yeah. So, you know, but right away what didn't feel right was that growing up in the Latin community, I know the vibe that it takes to put that type of music and culture into those Latin beings, and where the soul of that comes from. And I just knew that what I was looking at was an imitation. And so that was missing to me.
It did not resonate with you.
It did not resonate. It's like, you know, your favorite dish missing the main ingredient.
And you literally were like, is this like what a culture vulture is? And I was like, I was like kind of shocked that you said that, because I wasn't seeing it like that.
Yeah.
And you felt like that. You felt like this is my culture being represented by another ethnicity, and it doesn't feel right. And you and I were such on different ends of it.
Yeah.
So that is what sparked the conversation of talking about being a culture vulture. And Edgar, welcome to the stream. And you said El Gran Combo, for example.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar
They're
with
a
that.
band.
Oh, they're a band.
Yeah, they're a band.
And what is that? Like, what is he saying, for example?
He was, so the way that I was describing, I'm assuming that he's referencing the way that I was describing, the band,
okay.
and you know, the clothing, like just like El Gran Combo, yeah.
Okay, so that's what sparked the conversation, and it got Evo and I thinking about what it is to be a culture vulture and what it basically is encompassed of. So, off the top of my head, when you say culture vulture, you think about, obviously, people from white race taking on either something from the black community, the black culture, or the Latin culture. And after reading the definition, it basically reads to me like the more dominant culture. Right? So here, let me just take a read here. So I want to say, because United States, white is the what's the word I'm looking for? They are the majority. I'm sorry. So it's basically the majority race taking from the minority race, and that is where you tend to see culture vulturing being spoken about, what I consider to be the most of what I see to be the most.
And that being a sensitive topic, because the white race is taking a lot already.
From many cultures.
Yeah, from many cultures. So like when it comes from that race,
it is like a fucking sour spot.
Yeah, it burns just a little bit more than
it. I think it burns 10 times more. I think it's like 3rd degree burn.
I mean, I'm trying to be nice about it.
Yeah, I know you. I know, and you always like tread so lightly. And this is our own show, and I don't give a shit. I'm like, yo, just go for it. I get roasted on the regular.
Yeah.
But yes, so that is why when I read the definition, I understood a little bit more why when someone from the black culture looks at someone white maybe misrepresenting their culture, maybe I didn't understand it to the depth when it was the majority taking from the minority. Now, there are, I guess, what you can consider prime examples of this, and some names that come to mind right off the top of my head that I've heard these people being accused of being culture vultures time and time again are the Kardashians. Yes. Kim, Kylie, Kourtney. The Kardashians have been accused of appropriating black culture when it comes to the things that they've done to their bodies, their selection of hairstyles that they've worn in the past. There was a particular photo of Kim K that she did where she wore cornrows, and she basically said that she was like, it was a nod to Bo Derek, but the black community didn't see it like that.
And I don't think the black community appreciated it when Bo Derek did it either, right? I mean, there was.
I can't speak to that because that was before our time. But I will say that the Kardashians have been, like I said, their body, their style, their from their hair to their clothing to their bodies. Yeah. They have been the sisters, have been accused of this multiple times. So, in saying that, I thought, like, okay, it's obvious that there are people that are of the more majority race that are taking from the minority races. I wondered if it was possible for the minority races to take from another minority race, and then is that considered being a culture vulture? So I had to think about being Hispanic, and I identify as Afro-Latina, so like I thought about immediately, obviously, the black community. So it's like, can the black community do it to another community, another ethnicity? And for some of the reading that I did, it's kind of like yes and no, but generally, if you are a person of color, it's potentially seen as that you can't be a culture vulture. But I can say personally,
Can we call that black privilege?
whoa, Evo, that is.
Because I mean, listen, this is something that white people, and specifically, get backlash for. Backlash, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so now, but you know, when it seems that when people of color do it, there's really nothing said about it. So isn't that, and I mean, you know, and I said, can we kind of call this, because I know that white privilege is a thing, that it's a very, very serious topic, and the what's the word I'm looking for, the inequality in it,
mm-hmm.
you know, that it has in society. I mean, it's enormous,
mm-hmm.
right? But I feel like that there's never been any situation where, like, publicly, that there's been some type of where there's been, like, it's been
backlash on a person of color for misappropriating another culture.
A person of color can do something that a white person is receiving backlash for, and not receive backlash for it.
Well, when I had to think about people of color potentially misappropriating another culture, there were a few images that immediately came to my mind because I'm submersed in hip hop culture. But before I get to the images that came to my mind, I'm just going to read some comments. So Edgar says, cultures have been vulturing from each other for centuries. Mark, welcome to the stream. Happy Friday to you both. Wow, you're looking great. Evo, dapper as always, and Gina, boom. Looking stunning, girl.
Sir.
Hope you both are well. We are very well. Thank you so much.
Appreciate that.
Melissa says, are they not culture vultures if they are paying homage in the interviews the Japanese band? She's asking you would they be considered culture vultures if they're giving homage in an interview?
So from what I'm understanding, if there's homage being paid,
mm-hmm.
then no, you're not. It's not misappropriation of the culture. It's when it's culture vulturing, from what I'm understanding, is when you take something from another culture, you take the core of it and you make it your own.
Yes, and without giving any credit to the originators of that culture.
And so an example that I can give you of this, that this artist has publicly received a lot of backlash for being a culture vulture.
Hang on 1 second. I just want to read something.
Can I?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Finish my sentence.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. Is Post Malone. Right now, this is not that's not my idea to say, like, oh, he does this or whatever. It's known that he's been called a culture vulture, and I think he's a perfect example of it, because a lot of his music is based on, like, the black community music, but he's made it his own style,
mm-hmm.
and there's been no real homage paid to where his style really came from. So to answer Melissa's question, you know, if you're paying homage, then no, it's not.
I can't say that I know for certain if Post Malone has not paid homage, because I want to say
none that I've seen.
Yes, but did you ever look into if any interviews, if he's talked about where his inspirations come from? I
know. I would think that it should be in his performances and his music. Like, I would think that should be in his videos. You know, like,
I understand what you're saying. You know what I mean? Yeah.
And I don't think I don't see it in any of it.
So you think that there should be, like, an outwardly display of paying that homage? It shouldn't just be like in an interview where someone asks them, "Oh, hey."
Yes, I feel that, like.
But Melissa just asked in an interview if they're paying homage, and you're saying no, that they're not culture vultures.
No, yeah, if they're paying homage, according by definition, if they're paying homage, then they're not.
So that's what I'm saying. So Post Malone, I don't know for certain if he's never said it in an interview.
Okay.
Do you get what I'm saying?
Okay, so.
Because, like, are you for certain? Because you're saying you've never seen, but that doesn't mean it's never happened.
Right, none that I've seen.
Okay. Muncie says it's like namaste situation. It was white lady who made workout wear with the name, and the Indian woman filed a lawsuit. Okay, so that's a perfect example of taking something from another culture, not potentially paying any credit to it, and just being like, hey, this is that. And then Lauren, welcome to the stream. She says, I was surprised to learn Rita Ora isn't black. She is Albanian. I just learned this. She is a so-called blackfish appropriating blackness.
Ooh.
And you know, this is not the first time, Lauren, that I've heard about this. There was actually a girl that was like an Instagram, and her name doesn't come to me because she's really not that important, but it was the same thing. She was like an Instagram influencer, and she was appropriating blackness. Like she was like black passing. But if you see her at the beginning of her like Instagram career, she's like 100% white, but as her time on Instagram evolves, she's almost non-recognizable. She looks like a lighter skinned black woman.
Wasn't like the one of like the head, I want to say like the chairperson or the vice president of the NAACP was a lady, and she was passing herself off to be black, but she was actually white. I
actually have no idea, Evo.
Tell me you have not heard of this story.
And I can neither confirm nor deny if that is the case.
I gotta pull something up on this.
So I'm also going to, Melissa says Bruno Mars was getting backlash for misappropriating black culture. And Mark says, it's pretty messed up that in 2021 why does this keep happening?
You probably have your
No, I don't think that's what it is. I think because my plug is not plugged in. It's pretty messed up that in 2021 the color of someone's skin makes a difference and separates people. And when it comes to the Kardashians, please keep them over there in the States. We're trying to send them over to you, Mark. And then Edgar says, can we elevate our vernacular, please? There's only one race, the human race, made up different nationalities. So different nationalities learn from and copy traditions from other nationalities. So I would somewhat agree with Edgar in that statement and saying that there is only one race, the human race, and I would agree that there are different nationalities. However, we're just speaking from a topical standpoint and just trying to like dissect what culture vulturing is. So I'm not saying I agree with the separation of what we're talking about, but I understand what he's saying. And then Lauren says, let me just get through this and then you get it. And Ariana Grande, she speaks in black accent. Chick's Italian. I have also read about that. And Iggy Azalea is another prime example of someone who would be considered a culture vulture because she is Australian and has really taken on what you would consider like a black style of like persona.
Right.
T.I. even came out formally and said that he felt like that was like one of his biggest faux pas because he like co-signed for her in the beginning, and then she went left with that shit, and she realized that she had her white fans behind her and didn't really care that she was like misappropriating the black culture. And Melissa says, how long do you have to pay homage? Every time they make a new album? And then Lauren says, Evo. and I'm wondering if Lauren is referring to when you said what we call that black privilege, because honestly I was literally afraid when you said that. You know what?
I was dipping my toes in something that obviously I don't know much about. So one more. So the definition of having a privilege when it comes to a race privilege is life without the blockage of like adversity. Like your color has never given you adversity, whereas if you're a person of color, you're always faced with adversity. When you're white, that potentially is what your color's never gonna you're never gonna be faced with an obstacle in life because of the color of your skin, whereas someone who is a person of color, that happens a lot to us. Right. And there she goes, Lauren actually she found it as
so that's what she was so she found it too.
Rachel Dole I can't even say this right.
Dolezal. And then Edgar says, copying traditions from other nationalities is not offensive if it's done respectfully. She says, and then Lauren says she identifies as black, but she is white.
Yeah, she pretended to be a black woman.
No. So from what Lauren's saying, she identifies as black.
Right, but she's a white woman, and she was like I believe she was the head of like the NAACP for years.
Shit.
For years, and like visually, her appearance, she had a lot of features.
Mm-hmm. Of like what would be considered potentially a black
like
woman?
a light-skinned black woman, yeah.
Mm.
But yeah, it came out that she wasn't black at all and she had to resign.
You know, that is actually an argument that Ben Shapiro has brought up about being able to identify as something else when you are not biologically that. That is one of his arguments against people who are transgender. He'll say, okay, so if a woman at one point in her life can say that she identifies as a man, can I say that I identify as a black man? Like, that's one of his arguments, even though I think that biochemically, I think that there's a difference there,
right?
Because your race is not like.
But I mean, I really think that opens the door to identify as anything you want. Then, age-wise, you know, I can then can I identify as a dog? Can I identify as an alien?
Well, most men do identify as a dog.
Yes, they do. Touche on that one. I will give you that, miss. But yeah, I mean, can I identify as a dog? Can I don't know, like I could just identify as anything I want. I mean, I saw a funny joke where you have people that haven't been vaccinated identifying as if they are vaccinated.
Oh my God.
You know what I mean?
Can we not get back into that?
Hey, listen, man, you know, like, why not? Why is this got to be one-sided? Let's, you know.
And then Mark says, so just anyone can identify as what they want. Okay, I'm 90-year-old black Jamaican woman.
Hey, Rastaman.
Well, listen, he said woman.
Woman.
And then Muncie says, but what is the definition of an accent? What if you were raised around one type of people and that is how you speak? I had a good friend growing up that was adopted and she was white bread. Her parents were black, so they did her hair like the mom knew how. And Edgar says we need to stop identifying ourselves as colors and start identifying ourselves as human.
Agreed. Edgar agreed. And also, to who was that with that last comment that you just read?
About the girl's parents?
Yes. Muncie. So Muncie, the thing is that regardless of your race, if you're raised in the culture, then you are part of the culture. And I think that this whole thing is about people who haven't been brought up in the culture,
or people that know nothing about
or know nothing about the culture, taking other cultures, using it as their own to benefit them.
Yeah, like to make them dollars.
Yeah, and to make them money. You know, and I think that's what this is all about.
Because you and I spoke about somebody. Because so this whole conversation again started off from this Japanese band that sang salsa music. But Evo and I don't know if anyone has heard about this gentleman. He's straight out of Brooklyn and he reps as Chino Latino. And he is a Chinese man who grew up in Puerto Rico and now has a restaurant in Brooklyn.
Puerto
and
Rican and Asian fusion.
He has a hybrid of Chinese, Puerto Rican food, speaks fluent Spanish.
Yeah.
Like, he speaks it better than I do. And Lord knows my Spanish is horrible.
I'll tell you, if I go to this place, I'm falling all the way off the wagon.
So what I'm saying to you is that, like, that is someone who was raised in our culture and does a, I guess what you consider like a full representation of it.
Yeah,
and regardless of his race or ethnicity or whatever it may be. Funny story, I actually met a girl today who was Chinese but was raised in Australia. So she had an Australian accent but was Chinese and spoke Chinese. But when she spoke Chinese, she spoke it with an Australian accent. You want to talk about being taken for a loop, right? And then Edgar says, plenty of Chinese restaurants in New York where they speak Spanish. That is 100% true because I have seen that before. And that, again, I told you at the top of the hour, I said seeing Asian culture fuse with Hispanic culture is something that I have seen many times before. There's an Asian supermarket that I love to frequent here in our neighborhood. They have 2 sections dedicated to all Latin food. And every time I go in there, there's like a really good mix of Latin people and Asian people. And it's just like we're meant to be there together.
Yeah.
And not like one of us is Asian and one of us is Latin. It's just this is where we go to shop.
Here's an interesting thing. Have you ever seen an Asian Italian restaurant? Have you ever seen Asians
cooking in
Italian restaurant? Like
I can't say that I have.
Have you ever seen Asians on an Indian restaurant?
I can't say that I have. No, personally.
Have you ever seen Asians on any type of restaurant
other than a Latin
restaurant?
No, but I've seen Spanish people in the back of every kitchen.
Yeah, that's because that Latin food be hitting. That's why they can't deny it. You know what I'm saying? That's if you can't beat them, join them type of situation right there.
And then Mark says, "What's the difference between skin color, and eye color? There's no difference to hating someone." There's no difference to hating someone who has the different color eyes to you. Muncie says, well, then if you're talking about famous people copying culture, I am torn because a lot of people who pull part of Indian culture and use it don't know what the meaning behind it is. But I also am to blame. We need to stop dumbing down ourselves to describe ourselves as different races and prioritize describing ourselves as a human race. And then Muncie says, are people from promoting Mindy dots on your head?
You know,
I understand that, and I'm gonna say that I am 100% guilty of appropriating another culture. Like I said earlier, I have a love for Asian culture. Have always loved it from when I was young, because it was something that was built into my upbringing. My dad loved Chinese food, and every single time we had a celebration, my dad was like, we're going to Chinatown. And I grew up eating Chinese food, going to different Chinese restaurants and going to Chinatown. It wasn't just about the Chinese food. I felt like I was part of that culture because I loved Jade, and I loved I grew up loving kung fu movies, and so I was really submerged into that culture. And there were times that I would dress up with Asian inspired clothing, and I remember one time I did something with a kind of kimono looking thing with chopsticks. And then there was another time where I did a geisha makeup. And then as time went on, I was reading articles around Halloween, and people were saying, there was an article that was written about please don't go out and wear costumes like our culture. It's offensive. And I felt horrible because I felt like I was being offensive to another person's culture, something that meant so much to them. And I didn't understand the depth of it until the other day. And we're going to get into that next topic about why culture representation is so important, because when I saw representation as strong as I did today and yesterday, I can now understand why, if it's misrepresented, how offensive that could be to someone else. So, Lauren says, Gina, that's homage though. Appropriation is when you make it a costume. So, I never went out in it. No, actually I did. I'm lying. Oh, but when I did do it, I was a ninja. So I don't really know if that's, considered appropriation, but I just did it as a makeup. And then Mark says, oh, and then Lauren says, you didn't wear a costume, you were expressing yourself through fashion. And then Mark says, maybe it's because of where I live, the UK, but I grew up with black and Asian friends, and our color never mattered. In fact, it was more which football team you supported that separated us. And then Muncie says she was, but not on Halloween. So I feel like this could be a sticky subject, right? Because
it can.
So our whole point at the top of this conversation was, can a person of color appropriate another minority culture? And I told you,
apparently,
and I told you that when I thought about that, some images that immediately came to mind was people that I have seen in the hip hop culture appropriating Asian culture. And one of the first things that immediately popped to my mind was Wu-Tang.
Right.
And because I say this is because I'm a huge Wu-Tang fan, and I know for a fact that Wu-Tang pulled a lot of their inspiration, their lyrics, their name from kung fu movies, which is obviously 100%
from the 36 Chambers.
Yeah, and that is from Enter the Dragon from Bruce Lee.
Mm-hmm.
Enter the 36 Chambers. So they pulled that from that. The name Wu-Tang comes from a movie which is titled Shaolin vs. Wu-Tang. I grew up my whole life calling Staten Island Shaolin.
Yeah.
not even knowing that that came from a kung fu movie, and Wu-Tang took that name and like reused it.
Right. And so like it's almost like a question like, where's the uproar? Like where's the all this is what I was referring to before as like, is that is that sort of a privilege, you know what I'm saying, like that they're able to do that without receiving the backlash that other cultures would receive, especially to the degree that Wu-Tang had success by basing their whole style on Shaolin.
So one thing that I will say that I know for certain, RZA, who is like the spearhead of Wu-Tang, he has openly said how much he loves kung fu movies and how he draws a lot of inspiration and a lot of the samples in Wu-Tang's music from kung fu movies.
Well, I mean,
so this is not something.
I don't think that's something that he can deny. I mean, there's just so much of it in their music, you know.
So Edgar says, person of color, what does that mean if we are all human? Let's get into philosophy.
So, you know, you know what? I've been wanting to touch on this as we've been going through this, and we kind of skipped through before. But I agree with Edgar, and we did talk about this prior to the show on how I felt that, you know, if only things could be the way that they were when we were kids.
Such as?
Before, like, differences in culture were taught to us. And how kids, they just gravitate towards each other as human beings. There's no real culture lines amongst kids when they associate with each other.
I think where that became very prevalent to you and I was at our daughter's school function that she had this past Monday.
Yeah.
We watched I want to say she's Vietnamese, a little girl from our block. She was Vietnamese. It was a Vietnamese girl, a little white girl, a black girl, and then a Latina little girl.
Oh, you mean Manny and
No. At our daughter's the little thing that they had on Monday. Mine was really hot, and we were admiring the 4 little girls playing together.
Yes.
And it was the little girl from down our block. She's Vietnamese. Then it was the little black girl. Then it was a little white girl, and it was a little Latina girl. And I turned to you and I go, look how beautiful that is. These 4 little girls. Yeah. I said, only in America would you see like this dynamic. Right. And they were just having like the best time together. And we were just like, this is one of the reasons why we moved to where we moved, because we wanted that diversity. And we just, and then the other day, there was like literally like a block party in our neighborhood, and all the kids were outside, and it was kids from every background. The the Vietnamese little girl and her brother, our neighbors from down the block, they're Jamaican, us, then our other neighbors who are white, like literally every person of every background was out, and it was just, honestly, it was beautiful. And I would agree with Edgar that we want to say we are a human race, but I do think that people still always going to hold near and dear to them their culture.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that with everything beautiful, there is a dark side to it, because culture is a beautiful thing.
I would agree.
Every culture has an immense amount of beauty that only that culture can embody, and it's so beautiful to the point where other cultures almost imitate those things and try to make it their own, you know what I mean?
And like I said, I'm guilty of that.
Yeah.
I love the Asian culture so much that there were times that I found myself wanting to imitate portions of it because I found it so beautiful. Yeah. But what I will say is this: I fell so in love with these other cultures because I think that for me, growing up, there was a lack of representation of my own culture and a lot of the things that I consumed on TV. So whereas I can, go pop in a Kung Fu DVD, even though there was things like novelas, I didn't feel like that was a representation of my culture. I felt like that was something that people from my culture did, like actors and actresses, but like I didn't learn anything about it as far as my culture, other than, how sometimes people in these things could be dramatic. So Mark says, and I read this when you were talking, I thought it was pretty funny. He said, there are some colored people that I can't stand, like Tinky Winky, Dipsy, Lala, and Poe. Teletubbies. Just so you know, Mark, I love the Teletubbies, and my oldest son grew up loving the Teletubbies, and I love the Teletubbies because they displayed so much love on that show.
Yeah,
and I didn't care that there was controversy surrounding them because
bunch of
because
little
Tinky
guys.
Winky carried a purse. I don't give a shit.
Yeah, I don't know about those guys.
Oh my god. Anyway, and then Muncie says, kids only see color when it's expressed highly at home. My son has come across that. A boy called him Brownie and Sandy. Those don't know I'm Indian from Texas. Puerto Ricans, girl, y'all need to move to Texas. PR represent.
Yeah.
I will tell you this. I have felt the separation of people of color in my life. I have felt it where, I've gone to certain places, or I've felt that, like, I know I didn't belong somewhere because of the way I was being looked at, or the feeling that I've gotten before. So it's a sad thing, and it happens. And it's happened to me as a child. I remember trying to make friends with a little Asian girl once, and I could tell that her family was not about having their child play with other people of different backgrounds. And I remember being so sad because I could tell the little girl just wanted to play.
Yeah.
And I don't think that her family was looking at me, because it was a mixture. It was me, and it was my other friend Aisha, her brother David, and she lived in our building, but the parents never let her come out and play. And I think it was just how their culture was just very strict and about, like, their dynamic. But I felt bad because I knew that the little girl wanted to play, but I knew that there was that separation.
Right.
But anyway, back to other, people of color appropriating potentially other cultures. So I said to you that the first thing that came to my mind was Wu-Tang, and then the other one was Nicki Minaj, because I distinctly remember Nicki Minaj having more than one song where she has come out dressed in Asian style clothing.
Right.
And we have a couple pictures. So here is a image from her video Chung Lee. Can you minimize that just a little bit? From her video Chung Lee, where she obviously is wearing something that is a derivative of a Asian style of clothing, with the chopsticks in her hair. And she's she titles the song Chung Lee, which is a Asian character from a video game. So that's kind of like, that's not real, but still the style of clothing. And then if you go to the next photo that I have, this image from that Your Love Is the Illest, not new, that song. Nicki Minaj got a lot of backlash for this because she's wearing traditional kimono style clothing. She even has on like the metal fingernails that is also like of a more Southeast Asian style. She's got the chopsticks in her hair. She even has on like more of like a more Asian style of eye makeup.
So my question is,
so she got some backlash for this.
I wonder, would she have received that much backlash if she had 6 actual geishas in the background? Authentic geishas, like you know what I'm saying? Like,
I'm not. You know what? I'm not sure, because that would be. I guess that would be considered paying homage.
I would think that would have went a lot better if she would have hired and put up 6 actual geishas and just like, display them in her video.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like gave them a platform to show their true culture. You know what I mean? I think that would have went a lot better.
And Melissa's saying Gwen Stefani got backlash.
Yes,
and
she did. I saw that too.
And I'm assuming it's probably because she has donned clothing of Harajuku girls, which is something that's very prominent in Japan. It's like it's like part of their culture. I'm not 100% sure if that's why she received the backlash, but I do know Gwen Stefani for doing that. So these are the examples that I have of and then there's one that happened more recently that like was brought to my attention that I actually had no clue. And when I found this, I was like, shit, come on, man. And it's this picture here of Lizzo. And she is on the cover of a Rolling Stone magazine. And she is donning what would be considered Southeast Asian attire more specifically Cambodian. And she received some serious
Lizzo,
backlash for this
you
because
need to leave this to the Cambodians.
And even the pose would represent their goddess. So she received a lot of backlash for this. So would someone consider this being a culture vulture?
I honestly feel like that this is a huge misrepresentation of that culture. And I don't think it's paying homage or highlighting the culture for what it really stands for. I mean, like, you know, if I was from this culture, I would maybe probably have some type of feelings about this. You know, me knowing what it actually represents to the culture. You know, like this is misrepresentation of that. You know what I mean? So it's a touchy subject. You know, when you're talking about culture, you're talking about people's characters to the core. You know,
if I was someone from Southeast Asia and I saw this, I'm going to say that I would potentially be I would find this somewhat offensive, because I know that not only is this like traditional style of like attire,
it's not worn like this.
It's not worn like that. In addition to that, it is, I believe it's also, it's tied to like their beliefs.
Yeah.
So because it's being worn in a more provocative
it
way.
Goes against all their.
Yeah, I feel like it would go strongly against their tradition.
I agree.
And I could see how people from Southeast Asia could find this offensive. So again, I'm asking, would you 100%, ladies and gentlemen, would you consider this being a culture vulture? That is the question.
I mean,
I want to know if Lizzo on the cover of this magazine, donning Southeast Asian Cambodia traditional wear, would she be considered a culture vulture?
I would say yes, because there's a financial gain benefit that's happening here. And she's using this to advertise her.
I would say to advertise Lizzo.
Yeah, Lizzo and whatever she's promoting at this time. I mean, obviously, you know, when you do the cover of a magazine, it's because you're promoting something that you're working on at the moment.
Yeah. You
know, so, and she's using this as a vehicle to promote that. And I think that it's definitely a misrepresentation of what the culture actually is. I feel like that, you know, if you're going to do this to the fullest, you know, and pay homage and respect to it along with whatever it is that you're promoting.
Yeah, I feel like that may be key. I feel like tying in the element of that actual culture, seeking some sort of like some sort of right to do it. You know what I mean? Like maybe if you reach out to someone from that culture and you know, saying, how can I represent this? Because there are many times that people go to other cultures to learn other things, like whether it be to learn how to cook their food, or, you know, maybe if it's in an Asian culture to learn how to learn their style of fighting, or to speak the language. I feel like there are ways that we go and we learn other things from culture, but we're doing it with respect. So that was part of the conversation. Could a culture vulture be someone of color? And, you know, I think that it can happen, unfortunately, whether you're a person of color or you're white. I think you can be a culture vulture if you are misrepresenting another culture for your own benefit. I think at the end of the day, that's what it really is. I would agree with Edgar in saying that we are a human race, and that people are always going to look at another race and want to adapt a portion of it to their own. I just think that we have to do it with some sort of mindset of, am I doing this with respect?
Yeah.
Because if you don't, then you can't be offended when a person from that culture is offended that you've appropriated their culture, right?
Interesting point.
So, And Muncie's asking me what the article was about. Muncie, I'm not 100% certain. I just know that she was on the cover of Rolling Stone. And then Muncie says, I would be offended. It's not based on the article that backs the culture or promotion of that movie. I would get offended. And then, funny, Mark says the worst representation is the 4 American actors posing as Jamaican bobsledders.
Oh,
Mark is never going to get over that. And then Edgar says, Lizzo has to explain. If someone would ask her intentions to explain why she took this picture, we would begin to understand. But if her explanation was subpar or self-centered, then we can bash her. And then Mark says, I must admit, I find it hard watching most black comedians because almost every joke is about race. I find that boring. Maybe that's racist on my part. And Sonia, welcome to the stream.
what's up, Sonia?
So, to bring this conversation to an end, talking about culture, let's move away from being a vulture to a culture and let's talk about representation of a culture.
Yes.
Evo and I just finished In the Heights. And if you have not seen this movie, In the Heights, it literally just came out the other day. I want to say it came out June 10th, and it is streaming on HBO, and
Wait.
you can see it on, you can see it in theaters.
Can we say Hamilton move over?
I don't want to say Hamilton move over because it's by Lin-Manuel Miranda.
Yes,
so I'm not going to say Hamilton move over.
But I just felt like that this one really resonated. I mean, Hamilton was great. Hamilton, forget great. Hamilton was exceptional. It was brilliant. It was everything that every play that I ever saw in my life never was.
I would agree because I remember when you and I watched Hamilton together, you were just like
blown away.
What am I watching?
Blown away. But Hamilton didn't hit the way this hit.
We're going to get into why it hit that way, Evo. So Muncie says, phew, that was deep for a Friday night. Yo, Muncie, sometimes we go there. You know sometimes
we got to mix it up a bit. I just feel like, every time we get on here, it's like trending topics, bullshit that, bullshit this.
Bullshit.
You know what I'm saying? So
and then we go on TikTok and then they rip me apart.
This has actually been kind of by request. Some of our viewers been wanting us to get a little bit into some of the serious topics. So, here we are.
And then Edgar says, I saw that play twice.
It was great.
Hamilton is in its own. And, man, what a comeback for me. So, let's get into it. Into the Heights. I just
have to just round of applause.
I have so many feelings about this movie. I don't want to spoil it for anybody. I don't want to give spoilers because if you haven't seen it, I do not want to spoil it for you. I don't want to give, but I'm just going to give I'm just going to give you a description of how this movie made me feel, but withhold what I saw, if that makes sense.
I just read Melissa's comment.
Yes.
Of course, Melissa.
And then Edgar says, In the Heights and Hamilton had their own effects. Both are great. I would completely agree. So that's why I wouldn't say move over Hamilton. So, okay, first and foremost.
Well, listen, in my personal opinion, I just felt like In the Heights, it touched me a lot deeper than Hamilton did. Hamilton was great.
Yeah, I know, but Evo, it's like comparing like apples to oranges. I feel like they're in two different lanes.
But that's purely that's purely perspective based. That's a perspective based opinion. Yeah, of course, because it's purely on the way that you see it. One person can, like in Edgar's instance, saying that they're what did Edgar say? The Heights and Hamilton had their own effects. Both are great. That's his perspective. I have my own perspective. You have your perspective. So I think that, in some cases people might agree with me. In other cases people might not.
I just feel like that's like comparing West Side Story with Gone with the Wind. I think they're both beautiful musicals, but they're totally two different ends of the spectrum.
But these two bodies of work were created by the same by the same person.
Yes, I know, but
so that's like can you say like that's like comparing Titanic to Avatar.
Yeah, they're both epic, but they're totally two ends of the spectrum. So would you say Avatar move over Titanic?
As far as James Cameron's work goes, yeah, I would think that Avatar blows Titanic away. As far as a body of work,
well, financially, Titanic is like one of the highest grossing. I
said a body of work. I'm not talking about numbers in the box office here. I'm talking about a body of work.
I love you, Evo.
Did I just open up Pandora's box?
No. Listen, you're entitled to your opinion. I just think that they're totally two different things.
All right, I can respect that.
But I respect what you're saying. I just disagree with you. I don't think that one is going to push over the other. I just think that they're in their own lane.
Melissa agrees with me about something. Thank you, Melissa.
Oh God.
I think she's talking about what I said about Christian.
Okay, so Muncie says, okay, give us the background on the two shows for those of us who don't have cable. And then Edgar says Hamilton had to do with history, In the Heights to do with culture, like West Side Story. And then Edgar says Avatar and Titanic can't be compared when it comes to discussion. I would 100% agree. I just feel like they're totally two different things, regardless if they're both from James Cameron.
I had to go there.
It's like comparing the Mr. Bean movie with Gladiator.
What?
Obviously he's joking.
Yeah.
And then Lauren says Avatar is appropriating Fern Gully. Oh shit!
And wait,
Fern Gully's my shit.
Can I take a second to say hello to Lauren? Lauren, I just saw your profile picture here. Obviously, you have a different last name, which I didn't recognize from the beginning. But thank you for joining us and welcome to Shit Talk Fridays. And
Melissa says I miss Piraguas. I miss Piraguas. Piraguas, the ice, shaved ice.
Oh yes. Sorry.
That flew right over.
Yeah, we went from Avatar to Fern Gully to Piraguas. Like we just jumped around too much.
And then Lauren says West Side Story appropriated Romeo and Juliet. Ooh, and then Lauren says, Terminator 2 is the best James Cameron movie. Ooh.
Damn.
Yikes.
Ooh, this is getting interesting.
Okay, so.
All right. I like where this is going.
Let's not go too far.
Let's see how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Let's not go too far. And let's talk about In the Heights and let's talk about how this fucking movie made me feel. First and foremost, funny thing, I talked about the fusion of Asian and Hispanic culture. The director of this movie is Asian. And Lin-Manuel Miranda wrote the screenplay and wrote the music. Yeah. So here we go, having an Asian and Hispanic culture fused together. Because I salute both of these gentlemen because their depiction, the cinematography, I don't know the name of the DP on this, but the visuals in this movie, the music in this movie, the direction in this movie hit me at my heartstrings in the first 10 minutes. And one of the reasons I said earlier in the hour about why representation of culture is so important is because the first 10 minutes in this movie, I saw my culture represented, I want to say, easily 4 times in a way that I have never seen in my entire life. And I'm honestly getting a little choked up right now because I was in tears for, I want to say, this movie was 2 hours and 20 minutes long. I was probably in tears for an hour and a half of this movie in different segments. And when I tell you that I'm choked up right now, because when I say I have never seen representation of my Latin culture in a movie like this ever, from the food, the music, the women, the dancing, just from the little innuendos in the Latino and the Hispanic culture. I have never seen it before. From the abuela, from the, just even little trinkets in the household, the adobo, just literally everything. I have never seen it. And it made me so proud to be Hispanic. And I salute Lin-Manuel Miranda because I know he pushed for this.
Of course he did. This is, I feel like that this at core was his, I'm gonna call it his best work only because it really represents his life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Hamilton.
Of course.
Hamilton was something that was it was a passionate project, obviously, about, because like that has the history of the Heights.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the war and everything that happened in Washington Heights.
Mm-hmm.
But this was more. This was really more personal. You know what I mean? And so I really enjoyed it for that reason.
And Edgar says, Piraguas are on Fordham and Grand Concourse in the Bronx. Where you at? And didn't I say that?
You did say that.
I said that, Edgar.
I will give you that.
I'm just going to salute myself because Eva was like, you could only get Piraguas in the Heights. I was like, stop it right there, sir. I lived in the Bronx. We used to get Piraguas in the Bronx. I don't know. What are you talking about? Because I've had it in the Bronx.
Well, I wasn't
before,
in the Bronx getting Piraguas. I was only in the Heights. So.
And Melissa says, I could probably get it on Sunset. 100% agree with that. I also am very familiar with the Sunset area because my dad owned a shop there for more than almost 3 decades. So I used to run around that area, and I definitely have got piraguas around that area. And I can say that I also proudly lived in Puerto Rico for a little like snapshot of my life, and that was obviously a part of growing up there, even though we had ice cream shops that served ice cream that I will probably never find here, like guanabana ice cream. I'm never going to find it here unless I went somewhere where they had
I remember
that.
I used to bring home the guanabana candy all the time.
Yeah, but have you ever had guanabana ice cream? Like,
of course I have.
It's totally different. And Edgar says, Asian perspective, Hispanic perspective, try human perspective. That gave praise to Hispanic culture, not the Hispanic race. Okay, Edgar. Edgar definitely is trying to change my vernacular.
Edgar's on the one love train.
And listen, I hear him on it.
That's a great place to be, my brother.
I just don't. I just want to make sure that I'm speaking to these people correctly.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And the director is of Asian culture, so like I don't want to just be like, oh, this human here. And then, Mr. John Chu be like, what is this lady talking about? Yes, I am human, but I'm, it's still, I still want to pay respect to that. And then, Mark says, I think there's so much to celebrate about every race. And when a movie makes you feel that way, just soak it in and enjoy it. So I want to say that never in my life, I cannot speak more about this, but never in my life have I felt so strong in my heart about a movie. There are moments of pride that I saw in movies when my culture was represented. There's a scene in this movie, and I don't want to give it away, but one of my favorite movies. One of my favorite movies. One of my favorite movies growing up was Grease because I love the music and I love the dancing. And there's a scene where they go to the high school prom and the lead, John Travolta, brings a girl from another school, and her, she's like, I'm the best dancer in St. Bernadette, and it's obvious that she's Latina, and she does like a Latina dance, and I remember being like, "Ooh, yeah, she got that fuego, right?"
Mm-hmm.
But then she gets drowned out by the overall dancing of the overall school, but they kind of have like that dance off, and I remember just being like, "Oh wow, this is kind of cool," because like I felt like I saw a Latina for the first time, kind of bringing like that essence.
Mm-hmm.
In an environment that wasn't dominantly Hispanic. In the Heights, there's a scene where I literally, I think I cried the whole scene because I had never seen, I felt like it was Grease.
But in the Heights.
On 100.
Yeah.
And I was so fucking proud. I was just like, yeah, mi gente. Like, I felt like there were parts where they were singing the song, Mi Bandera, the song about my flag. And I was telling you that I remember growing up going to the Puerto Rican Day Parade and singing that song with my little necklaces. And I'm Dominican and Puerto Rican. So like I had both on. And, I have such a love for both of my sides of my culture. And there were parts in the movie where both of my cultures were represented. My flag was being represented. The food. You saw plates of food from my culture being served. When have I ever seen a plate of food mango more specifically being served in a movie, I literally was in tears.
Yeah, there was a lot of dishes in the movie that
I
are on top of being touched culturally. They hit you. In the way that's the quickest way to your heart, which is through the stomach.
and I honestly, like, when you looking at me, I have tears in my eyes right now. I honestly, before we started this live today, I was like almost emotionally drained because we started it last night, but I had an early call time today, so we couldn't finish it last night, so we had to finish it today, and I got back from work like very close to the time of the live, so we had to finish it very close to the time of live, and I literally, like, after the movie, I had to like sit for like 30 minutes and like collect myself, because like the movie took me emotionally. So one thing I can say, regardless if you're Hispanic or not, this story tells the story of immigrants coming to a country and trying to live a better life. So regardless of what race you are, if you know the story of being an immigrant, you will love this movie. And I hope that it will give you an insight of what it is to be Hispanic, Latino, whatever you want to call it. And Melissa says, oh, well, Muncie's saying something to Edgar, which is really cute. And Melissa says, I related about being Hispanic and being the first Hispanic and the first in college graduating. Same here.
I pointed that out.
Yeah, I'm in my family. I'm the only person to graduate college.
I pointed that out, how there's a lot of that goes on in that, and in that community, where you have so many people going there that are not really they're not really like inclined to be educated and things like that. They're just more about just hustling and working hard, and and a lot of laborers, and not just having a brainiac in the family, someone who's like just driven, drawn to the books and education and a higher learning is odd, and that type of person is pushed, as like the savior, the one that's going to make it out and make the family proud and stuff like that. And that's such a common story in these communities. And
Evo, I would say that you and I are those people in our families.
Yes, we are. We are definitely.
And that is something that you and I share that is very strange and unique in its own way, because when Evo and I met, we literally almost had the identical stories.
Yeah.
About how we were raised and our upbringings and where we landed in life.
And
it was
scary.
It was almost, it was a little eerie.
Yeah.
And still to this day, I sometimes I'm like, I don't know how that's possible, but it happened. So you and I 100% understand what Melissa's saying. Like, we know what it's like to be from immigrants and be the first to do something. And now, one of the things that I can say that this movie did for me, and if I ever meet Lin-Manuel Miranda, I swear to God, I'm going to bow down to this man, is it made me fall back in love with my culture. Because I want to say that trying to find my way through society, I have kind of sometimes moved away from my culture because it's not widely accepted. So sometimes I may quiet my culture because people don't understand it. And I may shy away from it. But this movie, like, when I tell you it reignited, and I turned to you and I said, the minute that our daughter is old enough to like understand the depth of this movie, she's going to watch it, because my mother did the same thing with me with West Side Story, even though sadly in West Side Story, the entire cast, none of them were Latino. I think there was actually one person in the movie that was Latino. Primarily the cast was Italian, representing Latin culture. And again, as a young girl, I didn't know that. And when I grew up to find out that they weren't Latin, I was sad, because I thought that I was watching people that were like me. Yeah. And I got backlash from this on another movie where I talked about the person who a character in the movie who I thought was Latin and they weren't Latin. People came for me and they were just like, well, maybe this person was just the best person to fit the role. And we now know that that is a bunch of bullshit, and representation matters, because if we are a human race, then we should be able to see ourselves anywhere and everywhere, right? It shouldn't just be one. It shouldn't just be one definition of what a character is.
In a perfect world.
In a perfect world.
Yeah.
And then pick a new West Side Story musical that should be out in December. Yes, I have seen that. And then, wait, did I read this? Unknown fact: Grease was taking a shot at West Side Story, since both musicals were actually similar in many ways. I didn't know that. And I will say this: I still love West Side Story. I think I also love it because it was something that me and my mother shared. It was an experience that I had with her as a young child, and I didn't have many positive memories with my mother,
right.
And that was one. So I kind of hold that near and dear. But let me tell you, that feeling that I had watching West Side Story with my mother, I cannot wait to share that with my daughter watching In the Heights.
I'm gonna look forward to that. Because
I'm gonna be a fucking mess when I watch that.
Yeah,
a mess.
I think that you still like. You know what's interesting? So you know what I thought about when I was watching the movie was that how it really hits different to people that grew up in that environment,
mm-hmm.
and to people that are watching it that didn't grow up in that environment but are getting in a really in-depth visual representation of what it is to grow up in that environment, mm-hmm. and how the experience is going to be so different for so many people, and what that's going to be like. You know, I wondered, like, you know, we felt it in a way, but what does it feel like for somebody who didn't, and how do they appreciate it? You know what I mean? And what's their real take on it?
I mean, listen, there was one scene where I cried so hard, and my son Mateo turned to me and he goes, "Why is mommy crying like that?"
That's what it was. That's what made
and
me like, feel like
I
that.
looked at him, and you answered it for me. You were like, "Mateo, this is how we did things growing up."
Yeah.
And there was a scene where, like, you know, I'm not really giving anything away. They had a party in a very small apartment in the Heights, and I was like, "This is how we did it growing up."
Yeah.
Now I have this house where I'm like, we don't have enough room. Meanwhile, we used to party in a space that was probably the size of my first floor, and it was all love.
So here's what really like touched me, right? Was that these things that we did as normal, these were normal everyday events, right? Mm-hmm. Were put on a platform, and they were put on a platform Hamilton style, and that's what really like.
And they were put on a platform, evil, but it was done so beautifully.
Like Hamilton was a beautiful body of work.
It was.
And so it was to that caliber, you know what I mean? And it was about the things that we just did that were every day, and it was made to be so beautiful. And I don't know. That's where my comment came from earlier. You know what I mean? Like, I just I don't know. I'm semi speechless. I don't know if you can tell. In certain
Evo,
aspects.
you and I were literally, there were moments where like our hands were on our mouth, like we were watching something shocking, like we were watching a horror movie, like we were almost afraid of what we were consuming. I know you got. I got
a little teary eyed in some of the scenes. I'm not. And listen,
there's no shame in that, because again, that is the first time that you and I have ever seen our culture represented that like that. Evo, when have you ever seen mango being served in a movie?
None that I can remember.
Never.
None that I can remember. So. I'll take it.
But with that being said, talking about mango, I'm going to read some comments, and then we're going to move on to our top 5 tonight. And I'm just going to end it by saying, if you have not seen The Heights, please do yourself a favor and go and watch this movie, because it is a fucking masterpiece. And Eddie says, welcome to the stream. There's an internal conflict that happens when the person going on to college struggles with contemplating disconnecting from their roots or going back to uplift their people. Yeah. And then Muncie, good night. Thank you much for joining us. And the Edgar says, I can break it down, but the top 5 is coming up. And then Mark says, Mary Poppins taught me that a spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down.
Yes, it does.
So I blame that bitch from when I was fat. And then Mark says, I think me and Evo have the same way of thinking. You need to come over here so we can to the UK so we can have a few beers.
Listen, that's as soon as I
And Mark,
touch
just
down
so
in
you
the UK,
know,
that you're the first person I'm seeing, brother.
Evo
man.
may have one beer with you, but if you're not drinking tequila, Evo ain't coming.
I'm coming over there with a bottle of tequila, and I'm gonna show you how we do it.
Yeah, that's how you do it. So let's move on to the top 5 for tonight.
Let's
so
do it.
because we are talking about cultures, and obviously fucking I'm high off of In the Heights. Tonight's top 5 is top 5 Hispanic dishes. Now, we're casting a wide ass net.
Yes, we are. So just know
because
that
we're going to try to encompass what we would consider the top 5 Hispanic dishes.
Right. So if your favorite dish has been left out, no offense.
Yeah, no offense.
It's just not on our top 5.
And listen, I'm just going to say right now, it has to be a dish. And make all the recommendations that you want. But it can't be, because me and Evo had this argument earlier. Evo was like, what about relleno de papa? And I was like, Evo, that's not a dish. It's freaking an appetizer. And Evo... Evo was like, what? He was like, what are you talking about? And I was like, Evo, when you go to a restaurant and you ask for relleno de papa, do they bring it to you out like when you go to like a place where there's like what do you call those places where like, you know, they have
like a buffet style.
Like a buffet style, yes. I was like, do they give you relleno de papa on a plate? I said, do they give you that shit in a wax bag and send you on your way?
You could get it. And not Mark, Edgar, that's a good one, but there's one that's even better.
Oh, real quick, I just want to say,
man, look, he's laying them out over here. Yo, slow down, bro. Pump the brakes. Let us get through the top 5.
Real quick, Anthony Ramos, the lead actor in The Heights. Watch out for this man. He's gonna blow the fuck up after this movie. Okay, so here we go.
Eddie says, "Whoa, top 5 Hispanic dishes. Y'all are ambitious. Yes, we are."
Listen, I said across all Hispanic cultures.
Yes.
So this includes South America, Central America, the Caribbean Spanish, Central, South, and the Caribbean. All right.
Yeah.
So we are trying to hit, this is our top 5. So please do not crucify us. Yes. Okay.
All right.
I'll let Evo start off with number 5.
Coming in at number 5.
Dear Lord.
And the reason this is number 5 is because this dish right here, it's a hit or miss. Like, if you haven't had this prepared correctly, then
it's trash. If you had it, if it is not prepared correctly, it is absolutely disgusting, because I've had it prepared incorrectly.
Yes, and so have I many times.
And it almost made me not like this dish.
And then but I have had it prepared correctly on a few occasions, which just goes to show you how much technique goes into preparing this dish.
Yes.
That if you don't have it the right way, you haven't had it at all.
Agreed.
And that is paella.
Paella. I remember the first time that I had this. Moving to New Jersey, where we live now, we have a strong community of Portuguese and Brazilian. So fucking paella is everywhere.
Yes.
And I remember one time you and I went to this one restaurant, and we had lobster, and it was great. And we ordered paella, and it was you, me, your father. Do you remember? And it was when we got the lobster that was bigger than my hand.
Yeah.
It was like half of my hand.
Well, no, the claw itself
was huge. Yes.
Was the size of your whole hand.
And I remember being like, I don't like this rice. This is gross. Like, I was like, I get it, but this is not good. And then I forget where the hell we went. We went somewhere.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I think it was with Melissa and Christian. We went to a restaurant that they had a version of paella, and I remember being like, whoa, this is paella right here.
Yeah. The first time I had paella, when it was prepared correctly, I felt like the critic in Ratatouille. You know what I'm saying? Like when he takes the bite, and all of a sudden he goes back to his childhood. Yeah. And he's like,
yeah. Evo was like,
mommy. Yeah, that was me when I had paella, because like I just couldn't believe how good this dish was.
Yes.
And how many times I had it prior to that, and I was just like, what do people like about this? This is nasty.
Until you had it the right way.
Yes.
And then Mark says, wait. I'm not even gonna and then wait, so real quick, Eddie says, yo, top 5 Hispanic dishes, y'all are ambitious.
Yeah.
Yo, narrowing down to 5 was hard.
It was tough.
And then Mark says, I spent most vacations in Spain, and we lived on paella. It's like some kind of healthy carbs that shouldn't exist.
Yeah.
And then Edgar says, I'm allergic to shellfish, so fuck paella.
Ooh, sorry to hear
I
that,
apologize,
brother.
sir.
Yeah. I'm going to have, just live vicariously through me, brother. I got you.
Because Evil's a foodie.
Yeah, I love
So
to
that
eat.
was number 5. But I'm going to say this. So before we move on to number 4, we had an honorable mention. And I more recently just had Peruvian fried rice. Whoa. Peruvian fried rice is almost kind of like paella, but it's fried rice with seafood. I had it in Miami. That shit blew my socks off. I didn't have socks on, but if I had them on, it blew them right the fuck off. And that is my honorable mention. And I will literally fly to Miami just to take Evil to eat this rice.
So, and I look forward to that moment.
And Eddie says, Evil's a dad when he refers to Ratatouille. We love that movie. We watched that movie several times. That gave it
away, didn't it, brother? Yes, it did.
So let's move on to number 4 for the night.
Yeah, that's because me and Eddie, we part of the dad club. All right, so coming in at number 4, this shit right here.
Woo!
This has first, second, third, and home base
potential
all put together in one plate.
Shit got muscles.
And that's the fucking bandeja paisa.
And you know what? Eddie said that.
Yes, he did. There's been a couple of mentions here.
Ladies and gentlemen, I remember the first time that I had this plata right here. Again, we live in an area in New Jersey that has a very diverse Latin culture. However, there's a strong Colombian community in this area. And I remember the first time that I had that, I ordered it off of the menu because I just read the description. I'm like, wait, beans? Eggs? Plátano? Wait a second. I need to try this. And then it came with the comes with the meat, with the what is it called? It's chicharrón. It comes with chicharrón, right?
Yeah.
And I remember they served this to me, and I looked at this plate of food, and I was like, I can't eat all of this. And I remember housing that shit. This shit is sugar and spice and everything nice, man. I mean, it's got everything you need in a Latin dish all on one plate. My God. And if you have not had this, please do yourself a favor and find yourself a good Colombian restaurant and go and order this shit. Paisa. I have not eaten this in probably about 7 years because I don't remember the last time I ate a piece of
red meat.
Pork
and red meat or anything of that.
Because the chicharrón, I think, is pork.
Yeah.
I haven't eaten pork in probably about 6 years.
Or red meat, or like because it has.
It's been a long time. But man, can you not see my passion talking about it? That goes to tell you how much I love it.
So before we move on for a second, Edgar says, "Not living vicariously through Evo, I would die literally." So funny story, right? When I was a kid, living in the Dominican Republic, my mom came out to visit, took us out to a restaurant. We went and we had a bunch of seafood. I had lobster, and Edgar, I had an allergic reaction. I blew up like a fish. I was literally.
Evo was Will Smith from Hitch.
Yes, yeah, literally that was me. Within I'm literally at dinner. We're eating. Everybody's. I'm the kid at the table, and so like when you're the kid at the table, all the adults are talking, and basically the kid's sitting there just doing nothing while the adults are minding their business. And before I knew it, my mom looked at me, and I could barely see her. I was like this with my eyes closed, and my throat was itching, and I remember going to the hospital and getting like 9 shots of like all of like this antihistamine. And I had
and the moral of the story is Evo and I just went to a seafood restaurant the other day.
Let me finish my story, please. All right. So I spent years staying away from shellfish. Excuse me. I spent years staying away from shellfish, and I ended up working in a banquet hall where they had just assortments of like seafoods that I would serve every day at these buffets, and my mouth would water because I would remember how much I used to enjoy it. But I ended up having an allergic reaction. And Edgar, let me tell you, one day I just said, fuck it. I gotta know. And I took a piece of lobster and I stuck that shit in my mouth. And I said, if I die, I'm gonna die fucking eating lobster.
And that's what she said.
And lucky to me, and I'm not, this is in no way suggesting that you should do this, but I just think that this is a funny story that you might enjoy. I didn't have an allergic reaction. I was absolutely fine. Somehow I grew out of that. And I grew past it, and I took a risk that I don't recommend anybody taking, but I now enjoy shellfish, and so here I am eating paella. So
Or
if
or,
you can,
or like a couple weeks ago
Yeah.
when Evo ate king crab and he was like, I'm gonna just get, maybe I'll do the 2 pound.
yeah,
No, but I think 1 pound is good.
Yeah.
And then the 1 pound came out. Evo was like,
Bruh.
is this
Bruh.
just 1 pound of king crab?
Yeah.
Because I'm a little
Alright,
scared.
So coming from one allergic shellfish reaction person to another, if you can vicariously live through me in that aspect, I hope, my brother, that
Edgar's
you
like, I'm
find
not trying
some
to die,
type of life
Evo.
in the fact that there is joy there's a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, man. I'm sorry, brother. I know your pain. That's basically what that story. I want to say that I feel you on that one, brother, and I know what you're going through.
So let's move on to and then Eddie says, how can you go wrong with rice, beans, sausage, steak, and over easy egg?
You can't.
You fucking can't. You can't. So let's move on to number 3.
Yes, coming in at number 3 is, and this was mentioned right here in the list.
Come on, fam.
Arroz con gandules y pernil. This shit right here.
And if you don't serve that together and with some maduro or maybe totone,
yeah, and a little bit of mojo.
don't even talk to me.
Ooh,
If you're not serving this together, it's offensive. It's offensive.
It's disrespectful.
I potentially will take this with white rice and beans and right. Potentially.
It's not going to hit
Like
right.
like I could, but it needs to be this way. It needs to be this way. And I'm sorry, the skin better be crunchy. Because if the skin ain't crunchy, I don't want it. If the skin is not crunchy on pernil, put that shit back in the oven.
Take that shit back.
Okay?
No, thank you.
No, sir.
That shit gotta
I
be
don't
like
like it.
That shit gotta be like crispy bacon is what it gotta be like.
And then Edgar says, oh yeah, I ate shrimp, allergic reaction. EpiPen had no effect. A tracheotomy was given. Stomach pump, can't eat shellfish again.
Damn, brother, man, I'm so
So
sorry.
Edgar's saying,
my heart
Evo,
goes out
shut
to
your
you.
mouth.
Yeah, he is.
You trying to kill me, bro.
He said, "Yo, you go jump off a bridge. I'm not following you."
Yeah, same.
And I don't suggest you do
And
it, brother.
Edgar, just so you know, we totally understand. Our daughter has a severe allergy to pineapple.
Yeah.
And we had to rush her to the hospital once for it, because when I tell you that she swelled up ×3, we understand that. And my daughter will look at a packaging of something and go, there's pineapple and that. I'm not, like, don't even bring it near her. Okay, so number 3, like I said, if you're not serving pernil with arroz con gandules, don't even fucking talk to me.
Right.
Like, literally, unless it's chicharrón. Other than that, I don't want to hear it. And that was our number 3 spot.
Yeah.
And it was mentioned earlier. So, like, so far, everybody on the live has been on point, because they mentioned paella, they mentioned arroz con gandules and pernil.
But
And they mentioned, what is the one I always fuck up? The Colombian dish?
bandeja paisa.
Yeah, I always say that messed up.
Yeah.
Literally, those 3 have been, and Edgar says, salchichas and arroz con pollo.
Yeah, but this next one,
That was
I'm
my
a little disappointed.
Are you really?
A little bit, because
it doesn't seem like a traditional to you,
Yo.
but we eat it so much.
yeah, this right here is a traditional dish that I know and everyone will agree, but it's overlooked because I just feel like because it's so simple.
Yes, it doesn't seem like a
It doesn't
dish,
seem
but
like,
it is.
but it's a staple.
And real quick, and Edgar says carne or pollo guisado with right.
Of course, I mean, listen, that right there.
That's another
There's
thing
no
I haven't
question
eaten
about
in
that,
years.
you know?
But yes.
But if you have to do like a meat with rice, there's also bistec encebollado with rice and beans, right? But
Mark says, I hope number 1 is Country Chris.
Oh man, Mark, I'm sorry, brother, man, to disappoint you, but it's not.
Definitely not.
Definitely not.
Okay,
but
so this is
if
number.
you had
This is
to-
number 2.
Wait, hold on. Before we go on to that, if I had to put these all next to each other, bistec encebollado with rice and beans, pollo, asado, guisado, al horno, whatever you want to call it, with rice and beans, and pernil with arroz con gandules, I'm taking the pernil.
Damn straight.
I'm taking the pernil. So that's how we got to that, because you know
Yeah.
what? All of those are equal. Are
we
great.
went through it.
Yeah, we did. We go
Damn
we went through it.
straight. You taking
All right,
that penny.
So coming in at number 2.
Whew, ladies and gentlemen, get
Unexpected.
ready, because I
Unexpected.
think this is gonna like take everybody for a loop.
The underdog that nobody saw coming is Mexican tacos.
And listen, when you think of traditional Hispanic dishes,
Yeah, and you know all of y'all love
tacos may not seem like,
I feel like tacos,
something that you would think about right away. But yo,
but y'all, everybody's eating it.
there is Mexican food fucking everywhere. And yes, number 2. Because there's a number 1, and I don't care what nobody say about number 1. But number 2 is tacos.
Tacos came in at number 2 because I just feel like everybody loves tacos.
Mm-hmm.
The dishes that we said prior, there's gonna be a lot of people that be like, you know what? I tried that. It's just not my style.
Yeah.
You know, I just
Agreed.
You know what I'm saying? But tacos, It's just
Taco Tuesdays.
yeah,
there's literally
it's
a day dedicated
yes,
to eating
there's
tacos.
literally a day that, you know what I'm saying? It's internationally known. Tacos.
Internationally known.
Yeah.
Because on the microphone, because I get stupid.
Yeah,
I
you see,
mean,
look,
outrageous. Stay away from me.
listen,
It's contagious.
And here goes
Mark
thank you for, and you know, all the way from Europe, Mexican food is my favorite.
from the UK.
Europe.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, y'all. Tacos are good, but it doesn't compare to every other dish you mentioned. So we put it as number, and Eddie, we would agree with
Yes.
you. But when we had to think about top 5, we had to think about what have we eaten
That has
so
range.
much that has that ranks,
Yeah.
and tacos was up there. Cause let me tell you something. I love me some fucking tacos.
Yo, give me some shrimp tacos, some
And
chicken tacos,
and I'll say this to you.
some tofu tacos,
When we stopped eating meat,
fish tacos.
Yeah, there was tacos. It was something that we still could consume with without skipping a beat.
And then when we were eating meat, it was chorizo tacos.
Yeah, like
beef tacos.
we like when we transitioned
You
to
can even
not.
have pork tacos.
Yeah, when we transitioned to not eating meat, tacos was something that we still could enjoy, whether it was black bean tacos, tofu tacos, shrimp tacos, whatever it was. It was a little hard for us to find some traditional Hispanic dishes that still we could enjoy fully. I have found ways around that. Now we have found ways around that we now have become part of our family culture.
Yes.
Because Evo and I, we make a mean lento empanada that our daughter is going to grow up learning and has learned. And I'm proud to say that I think she's going to pass that down to her children. But anyway.
So, that being said.
Motherfucker, we're on to number 1. And let me just tell you something. Number 1, I don't care what nobody say about number 1. I don't even
this
care
shit
because
right here, this that crypto kinda like.
And listen, Edgar says tacos deserving of number 2. Thank you, Edgar.
Thank you, Edgar.
Our number 1 spot is near and dear to Evo and I's heart. It is something that when I met Evo and I turned to him and I said, "Oh, you eat that too? I'm gonna marry you. I'm gonna marry you."
I see you, you see me. Cause I see you, you
right?
see me.
And in Avatar,
yes,
I see you.
I see
the
you.
minute I knew that Evo liked to eat this, it was a wrap, ladies and gentlemen. Our number 1 spot goes to none other
than los tres golpes de mango, salami y queso y huevo.
mango. Let me tell you something. One thing that I know about mango. My dad is Dominican. My mom is Puerto Rican. My mom would get up and she would make mango, and as she was making it, my dad would go, "Your mom can make some really good ass mango, but she is stupid Puerto Rican."
And just
but still, she make a slamming ass plate of mango.
And just in case any y'all were wondering, this number 1 spot was highly biased.
Extremely.
This is a bias to the fullest.
Listen,
and I don't care what anybody says.
I have no regrets. I have no regrets in this. That mango, I don't give a shit. I have no regrets. Mango is number 1, and I'm gonna tell you why we chose mango as number 1. Yes, we love it. We love mango as a couple. Evo and I share that Dominican part of our culture.
Yes.
But tell me, name for me another Hispanic breakfast dish that you could name off the top of your head that slaps like this.
Don't worry, I'll wait.
I'll wait because we can name all of these dinner plates. You know what is the Colombian one?
Bandeja paisa.
Paella, pernil, arroz con gandules, totone, relleno de papa. All these things, they're all lunch and dinner dishes. Tell me one breakfast dish that hits like mango.
Or how much, or what breakfast dish has this much work that goes into it? You know what it takes to just make mango by itself?
Mango literally takes like 2 hours to make. Because Evo, and
that shit is work.
Ladies and gentlemen, just so y'all know, Evo makes a slamming mango. And I remember when we first started dating, I would make it for him. And then one day Evo was like, let me take a shot at it. And he made it. And I was like, I'm never making this shit ever again. Your mango was so much better than mine. It's probably the 7 years that you spent in DR. I'm never making this shit ever again.
There's a little bit to do with it. I'm like, there's something missing here. I just, put a little bit of this, put a little bit of that in it. And yeah, there it was. And all of a sudden, I am the dedicated tres golpe maker in this house.
And let me tell you something. We chose this top 5 because we are so proud to be Hispanic. We are so proud to be Latino. And again, I thank Lin-Manuel Miranda for like reigniting that in me, because absolutely. I love our food. I love our music. I love our I just love everything about our culture, especially our food. So that's why we decided to do that. I don't speak Spanish fluently, but one thing I will tell you, I've met many people who can speak Spanish fluently, but they cannot throw down like me in the kitchen. They cannot dance like me. So just because I may not speak the language does not mean that I am separated from my culture. And I had this conversation with someone the other day about speaking Spanish, and they were like, why is it that you don't? And I said, because one of the reasons I don't is because when I have strived to do it, people who have spoken Spanish since birth will shun me for not speaking it. So it doesn't make me feel good about wanting to try. Where I could make a dish in the private of my home, fuck it up a couple of times and get it right. And there is now moments where I make things that people request them. Like I make homemade sofrito that I was giving to workers at your job that they literally are texting you like, yo, when is your wife making that shit again? Or like the empanadas that we make. And I'm proud, and that comes from my culture. So I'm happy that we were able to do this. And yes, number 1 was biased as fuck, but I don't care, because not one person has talked about a breakfast Hispanic dish that you can name off the top of your head. Yeah. The only other breakfast dish that I've had that comes from a Latin culture was, I worked in a restaurant once where the entire kitchen was a lot of them were from Central America, and we did like a breakfast taco. But guess what?
But it don't hit like
mango.
No, definitely not.
Because tomorrow, after a night of drinking, I'm gonna want mango. I'm not gonna want breakfast tacos.
I feel you on that one.
So with that being said, I'm proud of us because we only went 8 minutes over 9:30. I thought we were going to go way over tonight because I was excited about tonight.
Yeah, me too.
I had a lot of fun. And then Edgar says, easy, rotisserie chicken with arroz with amorero in Puerto Rico. That is made at the...
Arroz amarillo.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, DR, but PR had breakfast on lock.
Wait, with what? With rotisserie chicken and arroz amarillo? That's what y'all did it for breakfast?
Edgar, yo, I love you so much, Edgar.
Yeah, bro.
Because, like, we go back. But I'm going to just tell you this right now. I'm Puerto Rican and Dominican, and I lived in Puerto Rico.
Yeah, bro.
That's a no.
I'm Edgar, I'm a little surprised, you know what I'm saying? Because I just know, like, if you've had mango and you've had tres golpes, and of course I know you've had rotisserie chicken with arroz amarillo, and you put in that
next to mango
over mango, I'm starting to question you a little bit, bro. I might have to pull that card on you a little bit. I don't know, bro. We gotta talk about that, off camera, all right?
But anyway,
we're gonna circle back around to that.
We're gonna put a pin in that.
We're gonna circle back around
to it. But we still love you anyway.
Yes, absolutely.
But we just want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. We had an amazing time. And again, like I said, and by the way, Mark, yes, I was spitting lyrics. I just want to say, again, thank you for everyone for joining us tonight. We had a great time with you. And
hit Eddie's comment.
Thank you, Cousin Eddie. I appreciate that.
Can you show his comment, please?
Yes. Hold on.
What? Oh, man. Listen.
We had a fun time tonight. And again, if you haven't seen In the Heights, I highly recommend it. And don't be a culture vulture. Like Edgar said, we all a human race.
Yeah.
I appreciate that
One
conversation.
love.
I appreciate
One
that.
love.
Right. One love. I appreciate that conversation tonight. But until next Friday, I don't know what the fuck we're talking about. Because when I tell you that, sometimes I literally look at you and I
This shit
go,
goes on the fly.
oh my God, I think we're talking about that. But you know what has been percolating? Drugs. We have been talking about like the conversation of drugs for a little bit.
Drugs.
So maybe we'll talk about that a little bit.
We shall see.
We shall see. I'm not sure unless something else pops off that like sparks my interest. I go to the nail salon and they do some other crazy shit. But until next Friday,
Yes.
everybody, thank you so much for joining us. Peace out.
Peace out.